Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? 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 Your turn. Where do we come Listen. From? Where are we going? Where are we going? Yeah, you gotta enjoy the whole of going. Yes, would you say with going? Going. Yes, going. 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 Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Yeah! Yeah! You make a choral conductor very happy this morning. Great. Okay, where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Who wants to take the second part with me? Anybody? Nobody? Second part? Fantastic. Where are we going? Where do we come from? 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 Yes, okay now. Now all we have to do is sing the whole thing and rise. My friends, there are many ways to rise. With your body, with your spirit, with your voice. Would you take one of those options? Yes. Fantastic. Welcome your body into the room. Breathe in one good time and breathe out one better time. It starts with percussion, right? Listen when you clap. Listen when you clap. Yep. You got it. Let me go. Where do we come from? What are we?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. I'm Reverend Arif Mamdani. I am one of your ministers, and it is a joy to be with you this morning. Leading worship with me today are Reverend Jen, Dr. Glenn Thomas, John and Rob working sound and stream, the small army of humans helping to create religious education for our small humans, and of course, all of you. Take a moment to look around if you have not already. Take in your fellow travelers. Take in the gift of this day. Know that however you came in this morning, you are not alone here. You are not alone now. We can send our greetings in particular to the folks joining us online. Hi, people online. I think if you look at that camera, that might work depending on what Rob does. Shh, hold on. Do you hear something? If you were here earlier this week, you might have sworn that there was a cat in the church. And you would have been right. All week we wondered if the cat was real or just in our heads. It is, after all, the week before Halloween. It is very on brand for this church and this building to have the ghost of a cat haunting us. Traces, evidence of cat were found. We are pretty sure we cleaned up all of the evidence of cat, but step carefully. We saw small paw prints, a gray streak or shadow in our peripheral vision. And I was all set to tell you this morning to be on the lookout. Rachel made this gorgeous slide. Great hilarity was planned. Dr. Glenn Thomas, Allison, and myself, as you can well imagine, were beside ourselves with puns. I mean, a cat in a church, it just lends itself to jokes, doesn't it? You know I'm not kidding. But before we go on, I must pause a moment and let you know that thanks to the diligent efforts of Jim and Tracy, the cat's corporeal existence has been verified. The cat has been safely found. It is not this cat, by the way. The cat has been safely found and relocated after ensuring that it was not chipped to the loving home of one of our members. The cat is now being known as Taylor, the childless cat. Truly, y'all, a Halloween meowricle. Really. And this was the tame version. I'm restraining myself. Come on, y'all, it's church. Oh my goodness, the chat online is going nuts right now. Oh, you all are funny. We know where the party is this morning. All right, church. Let's put down the puns. Let's behave ourselves. It's church after all. Let's settle into our pews and breathe deeply, at least 3 times at your own pace. This shared breath that connects us, that makes us whole, and that brings us here now. There are 2 things that I want to be sure you know about this morning. Those of you who were just singing with Dr. Glenn Thomas's direction, you know who you are. Show of hands, do you remember yourself singing just a moment ago? Okay, so each of you, I'm inviting you to join our choir. This is the last week to join. You all just proved that everyone can sing. If you hear me inviting you to join the choir and there's a part of you that goes, ooh, and there's a part of you that goes, I am talking to you right now. Singing in community, blending voices, listening, and joining your voice with others is not just an act of worship leadership, it is a spiritual practice that can transform your life. Give yourself the opportunity to find out. Talk to Dr. Glenn Thomas to get connected to the choir. I also want to invite you to put this date and time in your calendar, Wednesday, November 6th, 7 p.m. Join us for a post-election vigil. Yeah, right? When I worked with the spiritual director, I would sometimes take a deep breath and she would say, good breath. So let's do that. Let's take a deep breath. Post-election vigil. There's a place for you. That's what we're calling this event. This is open to the entire Twin Cities community because no matter what happens on Tuesday, we are going to need each other. We are going to need each other. So there is a place for you at First Universalist. This is a soft place to land, a community to care for ourselves and each other, practices to help us hold it all. I invite you to join us. So let's take a breath together. Another good breath. Let's take 3. As we become present to what is happening in our lives and our bodies. And as we gather in this place, let us kindle our chalice flame. I wonder if one of the youth seated up front here would like to help light our flame. Please. And as Rosanna comes forward to help us light the flame, I invite you, yeah, that flame's looking a little ragged.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will you join in saying the words that we say when lighting our chalice? They start with the word love. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So y'all, I want to share a quick story with you. Has anyone ever heard that we are breathing dinosaur air? Oh wow, you totally beat the 9 a.m. service. Look at all those nods. So it's true, right? The air that we breathe probably has atoms in it from the air that dinosaurs inhaled and exhaled. I don't know about you, but I think that's kind of cool. Amen. Scientifically, the atoms of the air that we breathe are being constantly recycled in the atmosphere. So every time we breathe in and breathe out, we are taking in air that dinosaurs breathed. And not just dinosaurs, but quite literally the breath of our ancestors. Think about that for a moment. Feel that reality for a moment. Every human that ever lived, who we are related to or not, we are breathing their air. Every being that has ever lived on this earth, every being that engages in respiration, we are sharing in their air. Truly, we are part of a great conspiracy. So as we prepare to go in different directions in just a moment here. That's right, Corinne. Let's remember that. Let's remember that feeling, that reality in our bodies, that we are, with each breath, bringing in our past and breathing out our future. May we do it with some intention. So, dear ones, we are, I am sorry to say, dividing our forces somewhat. It is time for us to continue our learning and growth in different spaces. Children and youth, in just a moment, I will invite you to move into your own space. I want you to know that your journey is part of something larger. Like the branches of a tree, we may move in different directions, but we are always connected. The flame that we lit earlier goes with you wherever you are. Will our lantern bearer and all flag bearers please come forward? This lantern will lead the way for you. It reminds us that even as we move into different spaces, we remain one in spirit and purpose. Kindergartners and first graders, follow your flag bearer down that third aisle over there. Second and third graders, I invite you to follow your flag bearer down this second aisle right here. Fourth and fifth graders, please follow your flag bearer down that third aisle. And congregation, as our young ones head to their classes, we remember that all of us are on this shared journey. And let us sing our youth out into their classes and sing ourselves deeper into worship.
Voice
Each week when we gather, we make time to extend the care of this congregation. However it is that we understand prayer, meditation, however it is that we understand that which is greater than us, that upon which we are wholly reliant and cannot live without. Whatever concepts we might hang on these words and experiences of heart and body, care is a fundamental of what it means to be human and alive. And so we make time to settle into our bodies, to listen to the still small voice within, to pay attention. To hear bubbling up the prayers of our hearts. In a moment, I will invite you to share out loud, to hold gently in your heart, to share in the chat those things you would like to lift in worship today. And as your prayers are received, congregation, we will respond with the words, "You are not alone. We are holding it together." The circle is open. Please share what you would like us to hold with you. Prayers for Steve with advanced Parkinson's. You are not alone. We are holding it together. Let's hold that for just a moment. I will make sure that we circle back around. For your child's new diagnosis, you are not alone. We are holding it together. Online, Nancy shares love for Sarah, my former sister-in-law who has entered hospice with a fast-moving lung cancer. Nancy, Sarah, you are not alone. We are holding it together. For your 6 grandchildren, for your 2 children, you are not alone. We are holding it together. Prayers for your ex healing. You are not alone. We are holding it together. Online, Eli shares, for my daughter who was just diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety, and for all of those who have not been diagnosed because of its misunderstandings. You are not alone. We are holding it together. For your mother-in-law, Carolyn, who was just informed that the end of her life is near. You are not alone. We are holding it together. For Roberta Haskins' upcoming surgery, Roberta, you are not alone. We are holding it together. For Lois, you are not alone. We are holding it together. For all volunteering at election sites, you are not alone. We are holding it together. For the parents of Justin and all who loved Justin, you are not alone. We are holding it together. Margie online says, in my extended family, a 28-year-old died from cancer this week. Margie, you are not alone. We are holding it together. Allie shares the parrot that flew into her home. You are not alone. We are holding it together. And Allie also shares the unhoused people living near their home. You are not alone. We are holding it together. For queer yoga at the church, you are not alone. We are holding it together. And dear ones, this morning our hearts are with Barb Mercy, Lynn Anderson and their son Nathaniel as they grieve the sudden death of their son and brother Gabe Mercy at the age of 25. Your cards of support are welcome and needed, and we will share memorial service information for Gabe as it becomes available. Barb and Lynn and Nathaniel, you are not alone. We are holding it together. Laurel offers prayers for this church and all the people past, present, and future who hold it together. We are not alone. We are holding it together. We invite you to celebrate with Jill Braithwaite, member of this congregation who was recently called to serve the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Brookfield, Wisconsin as their minister. First Universalist voted to ordain Jill into the Unitarian Universalist ministry and will jointly ordain Jill with the Brookfield congregation this coming Friday. Check the newsletter for the live stream information and join Jill as she crosses this important threshold. To the congregation in Brookfield and to Jill, you are not alone. We are holding it together. And we offer prayers of joy and gratitude to Martha Moriarty for the flowers that provide such brightness and beauty on the chancel this morning. Thank you, Martha. You are not alone. We are holding it together. For all these prayers that have been shared aloud, for those that we hold in our hearts, let us remember that you are not alone. We are holding it together. And let us sing together. Jenny, I did not forget about your birthday. Who else had a birthday or has a birthday in October? I see Jenny. I see Karen. Carol. William. Tell me some names. Sophie. Sylvie. Autumn. Lou. That's right. I heard a name, I didn't catch it. Oliviana, thank you. Online, anyone? Glenn Thomas, can we sing happy birthday to everybody? Thank you for sharing the joy of your birthdays with us.
So much joy. We extend the care of this congregation to each other and beyond our walls each time we are together. One of the ways we do that is by remembering that together we have enough. In fact, we have all that we need when we share with each other. Right now, we are about to engage in the spiritual practices of giving and receiving and growing together. And this is a time when I remind all of us, if this is a time when you need to receive, whether that's emotional, spiritual, financial support, this congregation is here for you. Please reach out to any of the ministers or to each other for that care. It is here for you. If this is a time when you can give, our offering this morning is going to go to support Mental Health Connect. Mental Health Connect is an invaluable community resource. It's a collaboration and a collaborative between faith communities in the cities, working together to help destigmatize mental illness and to make sure that people can find the free and customized and confidential help that they need. They offer something called a mental health navigator, peer support, journeying with you if you reach out to them to help you find the care and support you need and sticking with you until you have it. This is such an important community resource. So this morning I invite you, if you have resources to share them with Mental Health Connect. Our ushers will now come forward. Our reading this morning comes from the Reverend James Luther Adams, who lived from 1901 to 1994. He was a Unitarian minister and professor. He spent quite a bit of time in Germany in the 1920s and 30s. And this is an excerpt from his book titled An Examined Faith. Let me put it autobiographically and say that in Nazi Germany, I soon came to the question, what is it in my preaching and my political action that would stop this? Maybe it was an extreme judgment of myself, but I said, if you have to describe me, you'd say I'm not really involved, for example, in combating anti-Semitism as it is in the United States. It is a liberal attitude to say that we keep ourselves informed and read the best papers on these matters, and perhaps join a voluntary association now and then. But to be involved with other people so that it costs, and so that one exposes the evils of society. It requires something like a conversion, something more than an attitude. It requires a sense that there's something wrong, and I must be different than the way I have been. So we're going to go on a bit of a journey today. A journey of present, past, present. Okay? So we're starting in the right here and now. And I always like to start with gratitude. Gratitude for the service already this morning, which has filled me up, and for each of you. Gratitude for Reverend Ashley, who laid the foundations for this service, and to the whole worship team. We collaborate together. Thank you to everyone who has worked with our youth ever, and in particular, everyone who has worked with our youth who went on the Boston trip last week. These 10th graders, wow. You all, these are some amazing, amazing human beings, and it is because of the care of all of the people who have guided them along the way. Reverend Arif and I and Allison were on this trip last week with our 10th graders. We traveled to Massachusetts and the Boston area to a variety of Unitarian and Universalist historical sites, and we engaged with them 3 questions along the way. You'll hear more about this from them when they lead worship next week, which is going to be amazing, so please be here and root them on. We asked them again and again to spend time with these 3 questions. What? So what? Now what? What did these people believe? Why did it matter? Now what? What does it mean to us today? We asked them to engage this too with themselves. What? What do they believe? Why does it matter? And what does it call them to do and to be in this moment in their lives? What? So what? Now what? Essential questions of a living faith. You might imagine they asked us why any of this matters, because of course they did. And we went back to Emerson and we went to this present moment. Emerson, who said many, many things, and among them, what you worship is what you are becoming. What you worship, where you direct your attention, energy, resources, what you want to be like, it is what you will become. What we believe shapes our ways of being, our policies and practices and laws, and the ways we treat ourselves and each other. So we said, for example, if maybe we believe that humans are fundamentally good, maybe if we believe what we say here each week, that each and every person is whole and holy and worthy, welcome and wanted, then that changes how we act, or it should, right? If we believe that human nature is fundamentally good, then what follows is the idea and the practices that through education and opportunity, through the removal of barriers to each other's full humanity, through the power of love and community and persistence, everyone can grow into their fullest potential and their highest self. And each person is trustworthy to make decisions about their own body, their own lives, the direction of the country, of our common good, because they are trustworthy, because each and every human being is fundamentally whole and holy and worthy. If instead we believe that human nature is fundamentally bad, that people can't really do anything about it, they're just awful and they're not trustworthy, then they must be controlled, restrained, not trusted. Government then, policies and practices and behaviors are about protection, about setting boundaries, about controlling, about guiding through punishment and fear rather than through the lure of possibility. If we believe that some humans are fundamentally good and others are fundamentally bad, I think we can see how that might impact our ways of being, our policies and practices and laws. It might look like sexism. Men are better than women. It might look like racism. It might look like homophobia, transphobia, ableism. It will result in things like white supremacy culture and fascism. What we believe matters. It shapes how we act. It shapes the policies and practices we create. We named this with our youth as we began our travels back into history. But before we go back into history together, I want to stay just a little longer in the present moment. I want to bring you into a conversation that's been happening in my head, at least, and maybe in yours too, about this struggle for democracy that we are in right now. I attended a lecture a couple of weeks ago by Dr. Mike Hogue and Dr. Sharon Welch, all about the struggle for the possibility of democracy. I'll keep talking about this lecture over the next few weeks because it brought so much forward for me. But this struggle for the possibility of democracy that they were talking about, it starts first by understanding what we even mean when we say democracy, the ideal of democracy, a government by the people, for the people, ideally a government by all the people, for all the people. In this lecture that I attended, Dr. Hogue said this. He said, democracy, by its nature, is an unfulfilled promise that can never be fully achieved. Democracy is an unfulfilled promise that can never be fully achieved. It is something that is always changing, always incomplete, always imperfect. It is a futural concept. Why? Because the demos, the people, is always changing. Because the demos, the people, the composition of the people in the community is always changing. Therefore, democracy must be always changing. Part of what is always changing are the conditions and constraints of empowerment. Who is included in that demos? Does it really mean all the people? What are the conditions under which they can be empowered? Is this truly free? We look back just over the course of the history of our own country, and we can see that, say, in the time of Henry David Thoreau, who I will talk about in a moment, really those who were empowered were the white male landowners. That was it. This has changed over time to include more and more of the demos of this country, but we are still a long way off from including everyone. And this demos, the people, is constantly changing. For example, our contemporary demos, our contemporary people, are becoming increasingly multicultural and multiracial. This is a fact. Our conditions of empowerment need to continue to expand as well. Constant change, he said, is inherent in democracy. Therefore, democracy is inherently unstable, always in struggle, is what he was saying. This isn't a one and done kind of thing. We don't achieve it and it's over. This is a struggle we will and should always be in. This instability, this constant change, he said over and over, it is a feature of democracy, not a bug. Constant change, instability is a feature of democracy, not a bug. This is what's been in my mind and on my heart as we've been traveling with the youth, as I've been making my way present, past, present again, thinking about who is the demos. Who does that include? So let's go backwards for a while. Let's go backwards to some of our Unitarian Universalist ancestors. And in particular, I'm taking us to visit three folks today. Henry David Thoreau, James Luther Adams, and John Cummins. So what do all of these guys have in common? Turns out quite a lot. They're all straight white men, for starters. They're all raised in a church in one kind or another and know the value of religion and of faith. They know the value of the what we believe. They also all value a combination of both the mystical and the prophetic in religion and faith. It can't just be about the what for them, about what we believe. It has to be about how that is put into action in this contemporary moment and in our lives. So let's go back to Henry David Thoreau. Lived 1817 to 1862. You may know him as a naturalist, as a poet, a philosopher, a writer, a leader in the transcendentalist movement of the time, which grounded itself in the core belief in the fundamental goodness of humanity, the fundamental goodness of human nature and of nature. Now, society and institutions could corrupt the purity of the individual, could corrupt our inherent goodness, but we could get back to it by stepping away from society, by immersing ourselves in the natural world to help restore it. In Thoreau's book, Walden, he describes his experience of living in a small cabin that he built out in Walden Woods. And there is so much to be learned from his writing and experiences, but today I want to focus in on something I don't hear folks talk about as much. That when Henry made his way to live out there in the woods, he did not feel alone out there. He didn't feel alone out there because of the natural world that was surrounding him, because part of his demos was nature, where the trees, where the wind, where the earth, the water, the bugs, the beans. These were all his company, part of his world, part of his demos. But there was more to that too. He demonstrated in his writing and in his living out there what I've come to believe is another core UU value, right alongside the fundamental goodness of human nature. It's this: other people know things. Other people know things. Now, this seems obvious, but let's go back, right? Then and now. As a white, educated man in the 1800s, it was not a common thing to consider that people native to the land, that the land itself, that people who had been enslaved by others, that women had any value at all beyond what they could do for you, what you could take from them. They were not a part of the demos. They were not people who you would consider knew things that you could know. But Thoreau believed that other people knew things. And when he was in Walden and in his writing, he acknowledged the previous inhabitants of the land where he had gone to live simply, to find his life's purpose. There in this time in Concord, Massachusetts, the city told its story as the birthplace of American freedom and democracy. And Thoreau added to that the stories of the previously enslaved people who had lived in Walden Woods before him. There on this undesirable land of rocky, sandy soil, one of the earliest experiments in Black independent living took place years before Thoreau arrived, because there was an experiment there. An experiment by 15 formerly enslaved people who went to live in Walden Woods from roughly 1776 to 1816. And Thoreau regarded these people as heroes. He admired their persistence in trying, like him, to live independently, to live outside of the society that was corrupting the inherent goodness of people. And Thoreau, in his writing, lifts these people up. He names them, he says their names: Cato Ingraham, Zilpah White, Brister Freeman. I bring this up because Thoreau's experience of who are his ancestors, who can he learn from, who and what is in the demos, is still instructive to us today. Thoreau widened that circle of the demos. He knew that people and beings that society excluded needed to be included. All people, all plants and animals, all earth and sky, all rhythms of nature, all whole and holy and worthy, welcome and wanted with something important to teach us. All ancestors, past, present, to be included. Now we take Thoreau's views of that what, right? Of the core of his faith. And we follow him into the so what and the now what. We follow him as he goes on and refuses to pay his taxes because he refuses to participate in a government that says that slavery is okay. Because he refuses to participate in a government that is going to war. He ends up in jail. He writes about civil disobedience, about stepping out of the things in society that corrupt our inherent goodness. His life and his writings become a touchstone for future generations, for Gandhi, for Martin Luther King Jr. We jump forward 50 years from the writing of Thoros Walden in 1854 to the birth of our next Unitarian Universalist ancestor, James Luther Adams. James Luther Adams was born in 1901 out in Washington State, and he was the son of an itinerant preacher, a fundamentalist. And this is important to know because James Luther Adams knew that there was probably a calling for him in the ministry, but he also had to go to work to support his family. Because they were fundamentalists, they refused to accept any money in exchange for ministry because it would corrupt them. And so, even though his dad had been a preacher for a long time, when he was suddenly unable to work, the family fell on hard times, and James had to go to work for the railroad. He worked for the Northern Pacific Railroad and ultimately chose to move here, where he not only continued full-time work on the railroad, but studied at the University of Minnesota. While he was here, he rejected fundamentalism, and he turned toward Unitarianism. He went on to study for the ministry and served Unitarian congregations in the Boston area, but he found himself struggling at times. He noticed that he kept getting in these political tangles with the powerful people in his congregations. He was trying to help them to recognize the challenges of the day, and they kept telling him, no, back off. He started to write in his years after this about what he called the dangers of the religion of the successful. The religion of the successful, he said, is a religion that cultivates an intentional separation from each other. A religion, these are his words, that cultivates intentional blindness, intentional separation from suffering in the world and the sources of that suffering. When we get to a place of a religion of the successful, then it is a symbol that humankind is lost. Ultimately, James Luther Adams didn't stay in parish ministry so much. He went on to be a professor and a writer, a trainer of other ministers. And like I told you before, he studied extensively in Germany during the 20s and 30s when Nazism was on the rise, infecting all of the social institutions and the faith communities, as well as the government. And he came back from that and decided to be a professor and to stay rooted in religion because he believed that what we believed, if we could act on it, was critical to us being able to resist corruptions in society, critical to us being able to resist things like fanatical fascism, he said. But this only happened if we took our religious institutions and our religious faith seriously. If we asked not just what, but so what, and now what? If we put our faith into action in the world. Religion could only be something powerful if it was more than a cultivated, intentional separation from suffering and its sources. He told us, first by reflecting on himself, that religion had to be about more than just reading the best papers. It had to be a question of what does it cost us? Who are we in relationship with? It has to be more than an attitude. It has to be us saying something is wrong, and I have to be different than how I have been. More than just an attitude. Fast forward again with me to our own Unitarian Universalist saint, the Reverend Dr. John Cummins, minister emeritus of this congregation. John served here for 23 years, from 1963 to 1986, and he is remembered and beloved by many of us. John also grew up in the church, the Universalist church, and he was shaped too by his faith in universal salvation, believing that each and every person is whole and holy and worthy, welcome and wanted, each of us valued and valuable. John was shaped by his early experiences too, his awe in the face of the cosmos, his experiences in college, where he had joined a fraternity there in Bowdoin College, But once he learned that that fraternity didn't allow Jewish or black students, he quit and signed up and gave a fiery chapel speech later that week titled Fraternity Without Brotherhood. The demos, the people who were being included, needed to change. And John wasn't going to be part of any organization that was exclusive like that. In college, John thought about being a diplomat, thinking maybe that was the best way he could influence the world for the better. But then he came to believe, like James Luther Adams, that it was people's foundational beliefs that would give them the strength to act in the world, in the realms of policy and practice, of law and community. And so he too turned to a life in the church. And I am told that John is known for saying things like this here. If you want to know your real theology, take a look at your checkbook. What you give money to is what you care most about. Now, I know the idea even of a checkbook is not as present as it was at his time. So let me expand this. Where you put your attention, your energy, your resources, this is what will tell you about your faith. John was also known to say things like, if I were to be put on trial for being a Unitarian Universalist, would there be enough evidence to convict me? These questions of the what, the so what, the now what, they have been alive in our history and they are alive in our present. We've asked our youth to engage them seriously. I'm asking you to engage them seriously too. It is one thing to come here and feel the goodness of saying each and every one of us is whole and holy and worthy, welcome and wanted. It is another thing to act on it in our lives and in the world. This is what I'm asking us to do. What we believe shapes how we are and what we do. How will we put our faith into action today? May this be our work. May it be so. Amen.
Let's sing together.
One of the ways we will get there for sure is by love. Loving each other, loving beyond these walls, caring for each other with such tenderness. Today I'm trying to make this pivot right here. It's a tough one. Today we'll care for our church community. I'm pivoting by showing up, if we wish, to hear a financial update from the board at 12:30, right here in the sanctuary. Yeah, by having coffee and conversation with each other downstairs in the social hall, by coming together on November 6th at 7 for a post-election service, by lifting each other up too. So if you see Reverend Arif, congratulate him on the 4-year anniversary of his ordination this week. Yes. May we let our love flow from beyond our hearts and beyond these walls to make change for us and for those who will come after. May it be so.
I am sending you light to